Computer viruses are nothing new, but the sheer volume of them in recent years is nothing short of an epidemic. To give us a clearer view of what's going on in the world of computer viruses, security expert Ken Van Wyck. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Hi, Roger. How are you doing?
Fine. Now, let me ask you this, and, I think a lot of people would agree with me. It seems to me that there is more virus activity than there was, say, 2 years ago.
There certainly has been. Definitely in the last couple of months especially, we've seen an awful lot.
Would you kind of attribute it to more viruses out there, more people just kind of writing stuff, or would you say because more people are online than ever before because now there's more targets to infect?
I'd call it a little bit of all those things. People have unprecedented connectivity these days. We have a huge population of users connecting to the internet, and that means also a lot of new people that need to learn the basic good hygiene of computer use.
Now, you actually sent me one of these files, and it's actually really interesting. It's an MPEG showing the state of infection in 1 day of code red. Now, I understand this is a simulation, correct?
Yeah, it just shows how fast code red spread, and that was about 2 years ago, 2 summers ago.
And as you can see, I mean, that's the course of less than 24 hours. I mean, that's unbelievable. I mean, it's you're jumping from not only just one area to another, you're jumping from continent to continent.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Now, are these viruses, are they written just because people want to kind of establish a notoriety about, their achievements, or is it something a little more sinister, or something that has a financial bent to it?
Well, certainly in the past we've seen a lot of virus writers write their viruses for that notoriety. I wrote a virus that brought down XYZ, and that's bragging rights among their friends. They thrive on that. I think that in the last couple of years especially, we've started to see a little bit more of a trend for virus writers seeing potential for profit in what they do.
So they're kind of not only out there just to say, hey, look, I just managed to bring down, AOL. Now I can make money while I bring down AOL at the same time. So they're kind of getting a second kind of wind to it. Now, let me just run actually another simulation of a typical virus behavior. Now, when I run this is what most people assume a virus would look like when they ran it. It's going to be like out there. You got, like, for example, I can't even click, and it's deleting all my files. I can't do anything about it, and I'm totally up the river, without any oars. But that's when you watch Hollywood, that's what it looks like. Mm-hmm. That's what they show. All these things disappearing off my screen. Is that in fact actually what happens in most viral infection cases?
That's a cute little simulator because it shows what a virus might look like. But the reality is that when most people run a virus on their PC, the PC looks absolutely normal. They're probably blissfully unaware of what's going on underneath or behind the scenes. The virus is sitting out there sending out email copies of itself to everyone in your address book, for example.
Now, is that kind of how viruses have been and always will be, or is there kind of a growing trend toward kind of a new attack where it's not just a simple attachment on an email? It's something, for example, a worm, a virus that doesn't need to be propagated by someone double-clicking on an exe, but just actually self-propagates over a network like the internet.
Well, the worm issue is an interesting one, but that's not really a new one. The code red one we saw a moment ago, that simulation, that was a worm that infected Microsoft's IIS web server. So that's not really new. We've seen those all the way back to 1988 with the internet worm. But what we are seeing is viruses that use new mechanisms. Sometimes they use more than one thing. Sometimes they might copy to like worm-like, and also use a email-type mechanism like we saw with MyDoom a month or so ago.
Now, before the show, you actually mentioned an interesting point that the one thing I didn't realize is that some email writer or spammers and virus writers are actually joining forces in order to kind of do this weird spam virus kind of combination. Now, is that something that you expect to see more of, or is that just kind of a one-off deal?
Well, it's the generally held belief that we're starting to see a team up, if you will, between the virus writers and the spammers, and that's a dangerous thing in my view, because first of all, we start to see people who are motivated by profit, heavily motivated by profit, take these things that we've seen on PCs with the viruses for years and find new and faster ways of getting them to spread. And that makes it really, really difficult for the antivirus product vendors to keep up with those things. Now,
is our current antivirus effort, like, for example, if I'm running an antivirus right now, is that all I really need, or is that just inadequate for kind of what's coming up, a viral epidemic?
I'm a believer in a layered security approach. An antivirus product is an important layer there, but it sure as heck shouldn't be your only layer. You see personal firewall software. That's another effective layer for some things. I like to have a hardware firewall in front of me. You can get a hardware firewall on your home cable modem network or DSL network for $30 or $40 these days. It doesn't take a lot to do that, and that gives you a really nice level of protection between you and the internet.
Should people kind of keep aware of the latest viruses out there and not just kind of get hit and then say, oh my, I've been infected? Should they go, for example, to the Symantec security site, excuse me, where they can just kind of get a rundown of what the latest viruses are and what to look out for, kind of the behavior behind them?
I think it's a good idea to watch those things like the Symantec site, and all the other antivirus product companies have a similar sort of thing where they list all the current viruses, and it's useful to know that, but I don't think it's realistic to expect us to have every home cable modem user going out there and reading those things on a regular basis.
Now, here's a question like a lot of people have been asking me. Is it possible, I mean, most viruses come as attachments, or if it's a worm, you can't do anything about it except block a port, but can you get a virus, for example, through a website? I'm going through a URL that just got sent to me, and I click on it. Can I get a virus that way, or is there a specific kind of a mechanism or modus operandi for viruses to kind of infect your machine?
Well, there's a couple of levels of answer to that. First of all, if you're going out to a mainstream website, your chances of being infected are pretty close to zero. In theory, you can get infected on your PC through connecting to a website. What's more common is an email that might look like it comes from one of your product vendors, for example, a support line or something, and it says click here to update your product. And when you click on that, it takes you to a website of their choosing, and there they start putting things on your system, but not a mainstream.
Not like click on it, I got infected. Now, what about, you hear a lot of Mac OS X, or actually Apple users in general, this doesn't happen on the Mac. Only you PC users are suckers for buying a PC because now you're going to get infected. Mac users won't have that problem. Is that true? If I switch to another operating system, will I have less of an issue with viruses?
That's a really loaded question, and the answer, again, has a lot of different layers. We have fewer users on Linux and Mac OS X and such than what you have on Windows. So for one thing, you have a smaller target population. For another thing, fewer virus writers have been writing viruses for those platforms, so there's not as much virus software, if you will, on those. So that certainly affects your likelihood of being infected. Are those other operating systems, Mac OS X and Linux, Unix, whatever, are they susceptible to viruses also? Absolutely. Do they have different types of defenses? They have defenses, but they're different than what you see on Windows. But you certainly have the potential for being infected there as well.
So what I gather from you is the best defense really is kind of having a multi-layered approach to a firewall, personal firewall hardware router, running antivirus software, but also kind of being aware that the viruses out there just don't click on an email attachment for no reason. A lot of this is propagated by human behavior. They see an attachment, they try to open it up. Definite no-no?
Well, unfortunately, email attachments are part of the way we work on the Internet, and we can't get rid of those. It's a useful function. People need that capability. But at the same time, it is dangerous to take an email attachment and blindly trust it and click on it and run what's in it. You have to be very careful about how you do that. And I've seen some people say that we need to educate users to not do that sort of thing, but I don't think the answer is as simple as that. I think we need better software that protects us from doing things like that better.
So you think, half of the effort should be on the part of software developers to create stuff or applications that don't readily allow us to do potentially damaging behavior like unclicking on an attachment.
You're not going to get people to stop clicking on attachments. That's like trying to put whipped cream back into a can. It's just not going to happen. What you can do is try to protect the user when they do things like that. If you look at the population of everybody that's using Windows out there, expecting them to become knowledgeable all of a sudden on computer viruses is just not realistic. They're going to click on those attachments. I think it's up to the software developers, and perhaps I'm going to piss off a lot of software developers by saying this, but I think it's up to those people to write software that protects users when they do things like that. We've given them that capability. Now let them do that safely.
All right. Now, final question for you. Do you think the whole computer virus will ever get a handle on it, or is it just going to keep running until there's a point where it's just a saturation, everything's infected, and you can't really do anything productive online anymore?
That's tough to say, and again, I'm going to say that there's multiple levels of answer to that. I saw my first PC virus back in November 1987.
Wow.
And that's not to say that we're not going to get a handle on them, but they've been slowly progressing. They're getting faster at spreading. They're getting more proficient at spreading in parallel now. But at the same time, we're seeing more and more technology come out on the product side that's effective at stopping them in different levels. But it's really tough to answer that directly and say we're going to get a handle on it.
But it is kind of an arms race right now.
It is very much of an arms race. You know, we make a bit of progress and they make a bit of progress, and we all move forward slowly.
All right. Thank you very much, Ken.
Thanks for having me.
For more information about computer viruses, just visit our website, techtv.com/call for help.